Wash his hands. They could dance, they could sing, they could dance, they could wash his hands. They could dance, they could sing, they could dance, they could...
My name is Sean Forbes. I'm a musician who happens to be deaf. I'm also the co-founder of a non-profit organization called the Deaf Professional Arts Network that makes music and music culture accessible for the deaf and hard of hearing community. And we're here in Austin, Texas. That aha moment happened for me when my parents took me to see Kiss for the first time. When I saw Kiss up on the stage and I saw what they were doing, I was like, I want to be just like them. I want to be like Peter Criss or like Paul Stanley. I wanted to be one of those people who was on stage performing. And I also grew up watching my dad perform. So every time I would go and see my dad perform his songs, because I would see the development of those songs from the creation to when he performed them on stage. So I always wanted to do something like My goal was always to bring hearing and the deaf community together. And by doing that, I needed to create a medium that was accessible to both. Because oftentimes, like sports, for example, sports is a competitive thing. You have a hearing team against a deaf team. How many opportunities are there for deaf and hearing people to be together? Music is one of them. And with my music, I aim to make the show accessible by having the lyrics behind me, by being inclusive of everyone. And the talking, I do because my mom worked so hard for me to be able to talk. And I have this natural rhythm that I have to share, and I want to be able to do that with both my voice and with my hands. That is the reason I wrote the song, Watch His Hands. I had people coming up to me and they were like, watching you is like watching somebody dance.
They can dance, they can sing, they can dance, they can wash his hands. They can dance, they can sing, they can dance, they can...
But the funny thing is, deaf people don't pay attention to the hands. They look at the face. The hands are a part of this whole thing. So when I'm performing, you can't just look at my hands. You have to look at my facial expressions. They convey exactly what I'm trying to say and the mood that I'm trying to express myself in. Watch His Hands is basically inspired by my life story. From the moment that I got that drum set when I was 5 years old to the moment that I met Eminem and I got the opportunity to work at a studio. It was basically my way of saying, you know, everybody's just like looking at me, and it's like, it's more about, look at what I'm doing. Look at the impacts and the lives that I'm changing. I mean, I never in a million years imagined myself as a role model, but I go to schools all over the country, hearing and deaf, and I talk to the students and I share my story, and really it's a story of doing what you want. I wanted to be a musician, but it wasn't like my parents were gonna walk me into a studio and make that happen for me. I had to make it happen for myself. So Watch His Hands is basically the whole story just summed up the best I could in 3 minutes and 15 seconds. DPAN, the Deaf Professional Arts Network, is probably one of the proudest things that I've ever done. I was lucky to grow up in a musical family with parents and two brothers who made music accessible to me. And how they did that was when we would be in the car on the way to somewhere, my parents would always play music. And they would play it really loud so that I could be involved. And my mom would always lip sync along with all of the songs on the radio. So I'm really thankful that they did that to me. But when I was a student at the Rochester Institute of Technology in Rochester, New York, where the National Technical Institute for the Deaf is located, I realized how fortunate I was because there were I had a lot of friends who loved and enjoyed music, but they didn't understand the lyrics to music. They didn't understand what the artist was saying. So I felt like it was my job to make it so that they understood. They understood who Eminem was. They understood who Bob Dylan was and who he represented. It was important to me to show not just the feeling and vibrations of music, but there's actual meaning behind the music. How the whole Eminem thing came about was really, I met his publisher, Joel Martin, and the special thing about the relationship between the two of us is he had a deaf brother-in-law. That connection was enough for us to develop a relationship, and Joel really believed in me, and he believed in what I was doing, and he saw something there. So what happened was, I was a student at RIT, and I met Joel and gave me a piece of paper, and it said, if you want free tickets to see Eminem, please contact me. So I started emailing him all the time. I was emailing him, asking him about what different opportunities I could have in the music business. I told him I would even clean his toilet. I know that most successful people start at the bottom, so I was willing to do whatever I possibly could to get my foot in the door. During that time, I decided to go back to school and just keep moving forward, and that's when I realized that I was always signing songs in sign language to my friends so they could enjoy music. So really what happened in a nutshell was a friend of mine, Adrian Mangiarati, created a video of me performing Eminem's Loser Shop. And I decided to call the studio where Eminem worked at, and I got a hold of his publisher, and I said, I have something I want to show you. So at that time I was in college at RIT in Rochester, New York. I flew home to Detroit to see my family for Easter and took a side trip to the studio to show them my work. And when I went in the studio, I thought I was really just going to show Joel, but it ended up being everybody in the room. Eminem was there, all of the people who worked with him. And I showed them the video, and at the end of the video, everybody was kind of quiet. And Eminem looks at me and he's like, deaf people like music? He was so shocked, and it's really, that became one of my missions, is to prove to people that deaf people do appreciate music. Deaf people buy songs on iTunes. Deaf people buy Beats headphones. Deaf people want to be as included as anybody else. People always perceive that there's something wrong with the ears, with this little box, when really, there's nothing wrong with us. We can do many things that hearing people can. It's just society perceives us that we can't, and they feel sorry for us, and they think that we're not able to do many things, but in fact we are. Because I'm living with my true speakers, always keep my mind with my teachers, from stages.